In the world of boxing, we've seen it all. Knockouts, upsets, controversies. But on August 24, 2018, something happened that left the boxing world stunned.
Two opponents in quick fashion, and Curtis Harper has walked out of the ring.
Wait, what?
I cannot believe this.
I've never seen this before.
A fighter walked out of the ring just as the opening bell rang. Not after taking a punch, not after a round, but before the fight even began. This is the story of Curtis Harper, the man who left the ring after 1 second. The stage was set at the Minneapolis Armory in Minnesota. It was supposed to be a typical Friday night fight card, with heavyweights Curtis Harper and F.A. Ajagba squaring off in a 6-round bout. Harper, a 30-year-old journeyman with a 13-6 record, was facing the undefeated Nigerian prospect Ajagba, who had knocked out all 5 of his previous opponents. But what transpired that night was anything but typical. As the bell rang to start the first round, Harper calmly turned around, stepped through the ropes, and walked away. The crowd was stunned. The commentators were speechless. And Ajagba? He was left standing alone in the ring, probably the easiest win of his career. But why did Harper do it? What could drive a professional fighter to turn his back on a fight he'd trained for? To understand the complete story, we need to dive deeper into the lives of these fighters and the events leading up to that night. When two boxers step into the ring, there's an unspoken contract. They're there to fight, to test their skills against each other, to entertain the crowd. It's a sport built on courage, determination, and the willingness to face your opponent head-on. For Curtis Harper, this wasn't his first rodeo. He'd been in tough fights before. In 2015, he went 8 hard rounds with Chris Arreola on national television. He'd been a sparring partner for WBC heavyweight champion Deontay Wilder. This was a man who knew the demands of the sport. On the other side of the ring stood F.A. Ajagba, a rising star with knockout power. At 24 years old, the Nigerian had already represented his country in the 2016 Olympics. He was undefeated as a pro, with all his wins coming by knockout. This fight was meant to be another step in his climb up the heavyweight ladder. The challenge was clear. Harper, the experienced journeyman, was there to test the young prospect. Ajagba was there to prove he could handle a veteran fighter. The crowd was there to see a fight. But sometimes, in boxing as in life, things don't go according to plan. To understand what happened that night in Minneapolis, we need to rewind a bit. The story begins on August 12, 2018, when Harper received an offer to fight Ajagba. The purse? $6,000 for 6 rounds of boxing. Now, $6,000 might sound like a lot for one night's work, but let's break it down. After paying his trainer, covering his training expenses, and factoring in the risk of injury, Harper would be left with a fraction of that amount. And remember, this is a heavyweight bout on national television. The stakes are high, and so are the risks. Harper signed the contract on August 13, but here's where things start to get shady. According to Harper and his wife, Sandra Rosenberg, they never received a signed copy of the contract from the promoters. They also claim they weren't told the fight would be televised until the day before. Why does this matter? Well, in boxing, TV fights often mean more money for the fighters. If Harper had known it was a TV fight from the start, he might have negotiated a higher purse. As the fight date approached, tensions began to rise. Harper and his team arrived in Minneapolis on August 22nd, just 2 days before the fight. They claimed that when they got to the hotel, Ajagba's opponent was still listed as TBA, to be announced, on the fight card. This led them to believe Harper's status as the opponent wasn't finalized. The weigh-in came and went without incident, but behind the scenes there were discussions about money. In the dressing room before the fight, Harper had a conversation with his trainer, Nate Campbell, and the matchmaker, Chico Rivas, about the pay. Campbell, a former world champion himself, says he discussed his 10% cut of the purse with Harper. This conversation apparently didn't go well. Rivas, according to Harper, simply told him, "Go in the ring, get paid." But Harper was feeling disrespected. He felt he deserved more for a TV fight. He wanted to see a final signed contract. And as he stood in his corner, waiting for the bell to ring, he made a decision that would change his life forever. The moment has arrived. The ring announcer has finished his introductions. The referee has given his final instructions. F.A. Ajagba and Curtis Harper touch gloves and return to their corners. The bell rings, and then Curtis Harper turns around. He steps between the ropes, and he walks away. The crowd goes silent. The commentators are in disbelief. Ajagba stands in the center of the ring, his arms raised in confusion. Harper calmly walks down the elevated ramp, across the stage, and back to his dressing room. It's a moment that lasts only seconds, but it will be replayed and discussed for years to come. In just a few steps, Harper has gone from being unknown to famous worldwide. But what was going through Harper's mind in that moment? He later said that he made the decision when he saw promoters on Ajagba's side of the ring just before the fight started. To him, this was the final straw in what he perceived as a series of disrespects. His wife, Sandra, who was ringside filming what she thought would be the start of the fight, was as shocked as everyone else. "I'm thinking, why, she said later. Why'd he go out there and not throw a punch?" In the immediate aftermath, speculation ran wild. Was Harper scared of Ajagba? Did he have a sudden injury? Was this a protest against low pay in boxing? The truth, as it often is, was more complicated than any of these simple explanations. But in that moment, as Harper walked away from the brightest spotlight of his career, none of that mattered. All that mattered was the image of a boxer turning his back on a fight, an image that would soon be seen by millions around the world. The aftermath of Harper's decision was swift and far-reaching. The fight was officially ruled a disqualification at just 1 second of the first round, giving Ajagba the easiest win of his career. But the story was far from over. Video of the incident went viral, with millions of views on YouTube and social media. National and international media outlets picked up the story, turning Harper's walkout into a global talking point. The reactions were mixed. Many in the boxing world condemned Harper's actions as unprofessional and disrespectful to the sport. His own trainer, Nate Campbell, said he would never speak to Harper again, feeling that the incident had stained his own reputation. Others saw Harper's actions as a bold protest against the poor treatment of mid-level fighters in boxing. They argued that his walkout brought attention to the issue of fighter pay and contractual disputes in a way that a normal fight never would. Harper himself maintained that he never meant to demean the sport. He said he wanted to make a statement about what he perceived to be disrespect from the promoters, but he also admitted that the aftermath had been difficult to process. "It's still mind-boggling to me," he said in an interview. "I tell you, my wife has to sit there and hug me sometimes. There might be a tear every now and then. I'm like, damn, I really walked out of a fight. Ain't no way in hell I should have done that." The Minnesota Office of Combative Sports launched an investigation into the incident. Harper hoped they would declare the fight a no contest, or at least order that he be paid for showing up to the ring. The promoters, on the other hand, felt that Harper had committed fraud by entering the ring with no intention to fight. In the end, Curtis Harper's 1-second fight became more memorable than most full-length bouts. It showed that sometimes the most impactful moments in sports are the ones that break all the rules. The night Curtis Harper left the ring after 1 second will go down in boxing history. Not as a great fight, but as a moment that forced the boxing world to face some uncomfortable truths. It's a reminder that behind every fight, there's a story. And sometimes, the story is more complex than we could ever imagine. Thanks for watching.